Welcome to Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Aimee Montgomery, entrepreneur and founder of A Call to Thrive, a strategic brand and growth studio. Today, my guest is Beau Watson. He's a business owner with more than 22 years in the car wash industry, who went from working in the business as a teenager to owning and operating multiple locations and sales. But what I love about Beau is his honesty in a world where social media makes entrepreneurship look easy, especially there's a lot of things going on about the car wash industry. And he's willing to talk about the real side of building a business and the pressure, the mistakes, the financial challenges, the long hours, and the lessons you only learn by living it every single day. Today, we're diving into entrepreneurship, branding, business growth, blue collar industries, marketing mistakes, and the reality behind what people online call easy businesses. Welcome to the show.
Hello. How are you?
Good. So, Beau, you didn't discover car washes through some online business trend. You lived this. So you've done this for 2 decades now. Take us back to the beginning. How did your journey start?
Well, like a lot of high school or college kids, right? I just needed a part-time job. Fast food obviously wasn't appealing to many of us. And so, right, liking cars growing up, the local car wash was 2 blocks from my high school. So I remember the day we went straight to the DMV to get my license, right? So my mom drives me to the DMV, take the test, do the thing. And then she said, straight to the car wash with you. Now that you have your license, you can go get a job there. And so we went straight from the DMV straight to the car wash. They hired me, interviewed and hired me on the spot. My mom was one that you had to do the application in right that second. It wasn't like we're taking it home, you'll fill it out and bring it back. I remember sitting in the family van, filling out the application. I went and turned it in to the manager because that's what my mom taught me to do. And then she had to sit in the car for the next 45 minutes while they hired me.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's where it started, right? Just like I guess anyone else would. The
Yeah,
difference is I just never stopped.
yeah. Well, and what actually, I mean, going through that process, did you just feel like you really enjoyed what you did for a living and wanted to continue it, or was your core driver?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what captured me, I guess, kept me going, right? Because,
Yeah.
as you go through high school and then, the normal path, take some college classes. And that's what I did. I was still doing that, going down the normal path, right? Taking some college classes. What got me stuck is the performance-based job. The harder we worked, the more I got paid,
Yeah.
the more accolades I got. And it seemed like this industry was doing that. And growing up on a farm in Kentucky, like you work hard. Like there's no other way to live when you're on a farm, right? You work hard. And so the car wash resonated with that. The harder I worked in those days, right, the faster I could wash a car, the more tips I would make. The better I'm at, talking to customers, the more I could sell a higher package and get commission from it. And so I found multiple ways to drive my paycheck as opposed to relying on that company to just give me a raise. And so my main driver was I decided how much I made. Yeah, they gave me an hourly, but back then 5.15 an hour or something like that. And but they could make my commissions. I could make tips. And so in that spiraled even when I got my own location. So they see your performance and they say, okay, well, now you need to teach it to other people, right? Can you do this? You can do it for yourself, but can you do it for a whole team? Can you teach what you're doing? That's awesome. What's giving you the money? So, right, they gave me the opportunity to do that and go through their training program. And I thought that was a better path for me. I was 19 at the time, and they gave me my own location to manage at 19.
Wow,
And so it worked out well.
that's amazing. So, what changed in you mentally when you finally stepped into ownership yourself? Like, I mean, at 19, that too. I mean, that's a lot.
Well, obviously there was a long journey between then, but there's always that spark that life is not about 9 to 5, work until you're 60 and then retire. There was something there, right? Growing up with a single mom, we grew up extremely poor, and I watched that you can't just go to work and keep going and then that's it, right? There's something else. And so there was always some part of me that was doing something on the side, always buying and selling stuff, figuring it out. And so the journey while I was in a career that I could make more each and every year, as I got better as a human, as a person, as a leader in my job, in my industry, I kept making more. Well, that's all well and good. But again, in the back of my head, I knew that it wasn't just about that. There has to be something more. And so that kind of started, I guess it took me about 10 years, right? Because I didn't have that entrepreneur role model around me.
Yeah.
There wasn't these podcasts back then that, we were learning from. Yes, there was an internet, but I didn't, again, I had zero role model on stuff like that,
Yeah.
and so I didn't even know where to look, what to do. And so finding out how to build wealth and how to build a business and moving from worker to business owner wasn't even in the cards. Um, I took a Dale Carnegie class when I was right at 30, I think. So I had been a store manager multiple times, done some little side hustle stuff where I'd buy and sell some cars and kind of kept that entrepreneur. I know there's something more in the back of my head.
Yeah.
When I took a Dale Carnegie class, a commercial real estate broker put me on to the podcast Bigger Pockets, and listening to those stories on Bigger Pockets, listening to people that were everyday people, 9 to 5, that were creating wealth through real estate just really opened it up. And that's where the mindset shift, to answer your question, I know it was a long winded answer. The
No.
mindset shift came from honestly Bigger Pockets. At the time, I was driving about 50,000 miles a year as a district manager for the car wash I was with. And so I had a lot of podcast time in the truck.
Wow.
And so within 5 months, I sold my toys, cars, all the stuff that you buy when you're making decent money, and I bought a duplex. And that starts to spiral you into, there's ways to compound money and to be an entrepreneur, and there's other things out there. So that was the mindset shift, was honestly listening to stories of normal people creating wealth on the Bigger Pockets podcast back in the day.
I love that. And that so resonates with me too, because I think back to my journey. I was always doing something on the side, you know?
Yeah.
And I was stuck in an office, but my thought was I don't want to get promoted and I want to just make some money and then go do my thing was my thought, right? And back then for me, I was more charity focused and trying to help people. And then eventually I realized, well, I can't help people if I don't have money.
Yes.
And yeah, and then I started to do the same thing, try to there weren't the podcasts or anything. The podcast didn't exist back then. I think I
Right.
started one. My podcast was one of the first ones in 2008 that I started. I remember finding a lady on a TV show behind undercover billionaires.
Yep.
And I hunted her down and learned. So that's where my journey started of actually making money.
Yeah, I haven't, I didn't really, I never really had the mentor thing. It's kind of all been on my own research, right? And trial and error,
Yeah.
go lose money, go figure out kind of what to do. And jobs don't really want you to do that, to your point.
Yeah.
You don't want to take the raise. If they get wind of you trying to better your life in some way besides maxing out your 401k, they actually look upon that negatively for some reason.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I learned from this lady, I went on eBay, I bought every single thing I could possibly find that was recorded of her, because she had these really expensive programs that I didn't have money to go to, and I'd have to travel and all of that. So I found it all in recorded format. But yeah, I had to keep it under wraps because I was at a company that didn't allow you to make money, and they actually had it in the small writing that if you made money, or even if you won the lottery you couldn't get the money.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a disclose in there. If you won the lottery, you could not take any of the money.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild?
That's wild.
So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, some of it's pretty extreme out there. So, let's talk a little bit about this. There's a lot of talk that I've seen online about car washes and how it's easy passive income and this is the easy business. What's the reality most people don't see?
Well, first, there's multiple different types of car washes, right? Run what's called a flex, and flex meaning that we are doing a full service option at one of our sites where we have the labor to clean the inside and the out of your car, right? And so that model is more labor intensive.
Yeah.
That means, right, you're hiring more, you're training more, you have more liability because you're in and touching customers' vehicles. You're moving labor around, and with labor laws the way they are more and more strict each year, it gets harder and harder to move labor around effectively for a volume-based business. And so, right, we can somewhat predict, where the spikes are, where the volume is, but, if you're telling customers you can get them out in 20 minutes for a full service, but 5 pull in at the same time, you can't necessarily predict that. So we run what's called a flex. There's some models that are full service fully. There's some that are just express, and that's what you see popping up all the time right now is an express model. Express model is about a 100-foot tunnel, give or take. Some are doing 150. You can go all the way down to 60, something like that. Free vacuums for customers, free amenities with their wash, right? The model is low labor, right? You throw it through all the cleaning equipment and then your staff doesn't touch it. The staff are really there to clean up, greet the customer, sell some memberships, and really kind of almost hands off. And then there's the self-serve model. Self-serve, right? You pull into this little bay and you have a high pressure wand where you kind of just spray it off yourself.
Yeah.
Better for bigger trucks. So there's multiple different models. And so it's really hard to say what the internet's trying to get at with this being a cash flowing business. Okay. First and foremost, they can make money. The express model does have high margins because of the membership deal. If you can get good memberships in there, you can make money even on a rainy month. Where this business, when I started 20 years ago, if it was a rainy month, it's hard to pay your bills, right? No one on your staff worked, because it's volume based and weather based. Now, what can happen is it's more steady. Banks and equity groups like it more because you have that reoccurring kind of no matter what. And so it's easier to maintain a car wash with that subscription model now in place. Now, to debunk the myth of these are easy,
Yeah.
when I 100-foot tunnel, that means there's about $1 million worth of equipment. This equipment is run by sensors, air actuators, water valves that are on timers, and PLCs that control when it comes on, when it goes off. To keep all of this safe and running properly, you have to be somewhat of a jack of all trades. You have to know about high voltage, low voltage, pneumatics. You have to know about water filtration. So if you're just looking at cash flowing business and an investor goes, well, I've got $4 million, I'll just build a car wash. That's all fine and dandy, but can you find someone that's a jack of all trades that can diagnose problems quickly so you don't start knocking ears off their $1,000 Tahoes? As prices go up on cars, right? The average price of cars continue to rise year over year. You have to make safer and safer equipment. You have to train team members still. This is still, regardless of the express model where it's less labor intensive, you still have to train team members. This is not just plug and play like people think. That equipment is extremely costly. It's costly to repair. If you're an investor and you're not the guy fixing it, those people that do fix it run about 250 per hour.
Wow.
Okay. Not just your average, plumber or electrician. And even so, those are getting high, right? So you call out a maintenance guy that's 250 an hour, you still have to know what to do until they get on site. Do you keep running cars with broken equipment? Is there a way? Do you know how to turn it off? Pull it back? Can you still wash cars safely? So there's more to it than just throwing $4 to $7 million at a site and saying, hey, it's going to have a 40% margin. There's way more to it than that.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about prior to the podcast about branding and marketing and consistently, and you had some experience around that. Looking back, why was branding more important than you initially realized?
So for us, we acquired two sites that were the same brand, and then just 4 months later, we acquired one more site that was a different brand. For us, we felt the time, energy, labor, money to market two different brands when our sites are within 12 to 14 minutes of each other seemed very silly.
Mm.
Bootstrapping it a little bit, not having an agency behind us, a marketing agency, not having equity money behind us, we were making our own, right, marketing and posts and things like that. And so trying to do, two different color schemes, two different logos, trying to come up with specials for them, implementing them into the point of sale systems that we're doing a special, and all of that stuff. If you're going to build out those brands and do that extra work for two different brands and three different sites, then you go and rebrand it, you kind of have to start over.
Yeah.
So we unfortunately, kind of a mistake we've made on our journey is not branding fast enough. We kept it that way for another almost 4 months, almost, where we had 2 different brands, and so we felt the time, energy, effort, money to market 2 brands wasn't worth it, and so we didn't do anything for marketing really, and so that put us behind the ball. I know that to be true because the moment we rebranded all 3 sites, all branding, all signage, and we actually started putting effort into building our brand in our communities, it exploded. I think now from the beginning of August until right now in May, we have 12 to 1,300 new five-star reviews between our 3 sites.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and me and you both know that that's huge for a local business to pull that up onto Google Maps and see a 4.9 star at 500 reviews.
Yeah, definitely. And you bring up a really good point is that, and something that I have even learned running a marketing agency. Now I've turned more to growth marketing and branding. But and the reason why is because I've noticed so many people struggling with marketing and like doing the stuff and getting no response from it because they didn't have a brand. They don't
Right.
have a strong brand. They might have a pretty website, they might have a logo, but that's not true branding, right?
That's right.
That actually builds a trust and gets people to care. And I'm sure now that you have all of these everything branded, people that'll recognize you, they see you as, a business they can trust because there's evidence of it, right?
Yes. Yes, and so right, and that really helps if you're in a tight-knit community like we are. What's worked in the past for me is some grassroots marketing, getting involved in the Better Business Bureaus, the Chamber of Commerce's, and things like that. If you have multiple different brands and you go to a networking event where you're networking with other business owners, small business owners, and leaders in your community, what business card do you hand them? Right? And what are you pitching to them? What I want and right, this is branding. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm a car washer, not a marketing expert. But like for me, what I want is the moment they think car wash in any conversation, whether I'm around or not, I want them to see my face and see my logo. That's it, right? If car washing comes up in Round Rock, Texas, I want my face and my logo to come up. And the more I can get that in front of their faces, the more I go to networking events, shake hands, hand them my business card, give away free memberships at events around town and charity events around town and things like that. I want to be synonymous with just car wash. We don't call it a tissue, we call it a Kleenex. Well, Kleenex is the brand. So it's not, but we all call it a Kleenex,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So I want to be that guy in my communities. And so I think I can't do that with 2 different brands. You have to get a synergy real quick on what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many business owners out there that struggle to communicate their value and what they have to offer in their business, and they don't get why people aren't getting it. And it's just their brand, right?
Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's hard to get traction, right? Social media nowadays, there's so much pulling the consumer,
Yeah.
right? We get pulled in all different directions. And so it is hard to get their attention. That's why I think even in today's world where we're pulled in a million different directions, my thought and what's worked in the past, even when social media wasn't so prevalent, is just meeting some people face to face. It
Yeah.
is a it's not instant, I can tell you that, right? It's not like I saw an uptick of 30% in volume because I've shook some hands at a local networking event. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it lays a bigger foundation, right? If the business owners and leaders in your community think of you when they think of that type of business, then your foundation is laid. And so your long-term foundation, you're strong in that community. So it's not an overnight goal, right? But building your brand, getting to know your community, getting involved is that foundation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and also, how do you translate that to online? Right. So a lot of people will do that. They'll go out and they'll network and it's easy because they're like, I just go up and talk to somebody and I show up and they see me and they trust me. And so then it becomes easy. But then they don't put that same level of trust on their website and they don't
That's
put
right.
them on the website and maybe even just a video about who they are. and so that people can actually connect to a human being versus just a business. And that's where things fall flat because you are your brand, to your point, right? If that's you and that's where you get the most traction, it's because people need to have that similar experience. I experienced that in my business. Like when I first started, I just had a, your normal agency type thing, and didn't really show me much. It was just here's what you can get, right? When I switched that and I made the brand about me and my expertise showed up and said this is who I am, completely different.
Right.
Completely different because I no longer had to say, well, here's my background, here's what I know, here's people just could go and see, you know?
Right.
And so I experienced that in my business, and that was transformational. And yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are missing as well. You talked about how fast decisions matter in business. What's one decision you wish you would have made sooner?
Well, we definitely have talked about that a little bit, right? I should have rebranded way quicker. I should have. Here's another one. Me and you have we already talked about the marketing side of it. I
Mhm.
think that should have been done way quicker, and I know I made that mistake, and I won't make it again. I can guarantee that. As we look to expand, there's not a chance that I'm going to make that same mistake. I want that brand immediate. So that's definitely, I think, the one that constantly sticks. But here's another that we didn't talk about previously a little bit, and I think a lot of business owners struggle with this and humans in general. We didn't turn over some staff when we took over these sites quick enough. We all want to see the best in people, and we want to say that we can train them, that they want new opportunities, that we don't want to be that ugly person that comes in and takes over a business and cleans house. I don't think there's a human out there that would enjoy doing that,
Yeah.
and we definitely don't. But we are, in fact, running a business and we have given too many chances. And that's a mistake, just being honest, that I continue to make because we're humans and we want to see the best in people and we like them as humans, but sometimes they're not best for our business. And so we've been thinking about that a lot lately. Is again, I don't know. Like I said, I'm having a hard time learning this lesson because, again, I'm a human. And when I meet someone, it's not like I want to say, hey, I'm taking over your car wash now. All of you are fired. But at the same time, I think there's got to be a system in place that we make a decision faster on who's the right team members to build your culture and your brand moving forward and who's not. And
Yeah.
so that's one that's been coming up lately. And I think it's really hard as an entrepreneur to walk this fine line of caring about people, wanting to help people, wanting to build up these, and I call them kids, right? They're in their 20s, right? These kids that work for us and things like that, wanting to build them up and teach them life lessons and maybe give them a career like I have in this industry. But at the same time, sometimes we're not moving away from them quick enough.
Yeah.
So that would be number two, I think. And just being honest, I'm not sure I learned my lesson yet.
Yeah, no, fire fast. I think a lot of people, deal with that. Fire fast, hire slow.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
right.
is it's tough, especially if you've got somebody working for you that is struggling in some way, struggling in life or whatever it may be. But it
Right.
doesn't do them any good, you know, just feeling sorry for them and keeping it around.
That's right. You might actually be that push for them to go get something that can make a difference for them in their life. And so I just don't remember that fast enough. And so that definitely answers your question, right? I think we could be faster at that in some
Yeah.
regard. And I think the human side of us gets in the way a little bit.
Let's talk a little bit about the difference between marketing your business and actually making money, right? The revenue engine that it takes to actually make it. What have you learned in that space of, because a lot of business owners, they think, oh, people just need to know that I exist. They just need to know that I'm here. I just need traffic. But what have you realized and what actually drives your revenue and gets the customers? And we talked a little bit about in-person networking, but what else might you suggest or think about that people have to have, should be thinking about in that regard?
No, I think that's a great question. In a lot of the car washes I turned around, and what we're working on here today is not just driving volume. You can listen to a bunch of gurus on YouTube. Alex Hormozy is a good one for this specifically. Is why don't you make money off the people that you do have, right? If you're not selling to all your customers, that's a problem. And so, right, if we're talking about driving revenue, have you looked at your current customers and gotten more revenue out of your current customers, right? So, yes, we need volume. Yes, we need new customers. But with even our subscription service, we had to come in and train the staff to, instead of just letting the membership pass by, say good morning and see if they need an upgrade just today, right? Okay, so they're paying 26 a month for their plan, and that's all fine and dandy, but did you need the graphene protected today, right? The sun's coming out, you want to protect it from the Texas sun. And so I would, and this has worked very successfully for me in the past. When I turned around 9 sites in Atlanta, I'm going to be honest, over those 18 months, we turned it from being severely in the red in the millions to barely in the black. But I didn't do that based off volume. We actually went down in volume over those 18 months when I took over. We did that purely based off sales. Let's capture what we got while we're there. So I think people need to listen to some more Alex Hormozy and talk to your customers. Ask the question, right? A closed mouth doesn't get fed sort of situation.
Yeah, definitely. We talked a little bit about merch and local businesses having merch, and you had some insights around that. Do you think more local businesses should jump on that and, offer some sort of lifestyle brand or promote their businesses through that avenue?
I think so. I think there's a kind of a plateau that businesses have in their community where people do know them. There's a few in Round Rock, like coffee shops that, like, if you say the name of this coffee shop, everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
In Round Rock, it's Round Rock Donuts, and I don't know if they sell merch, but if they don't, they're missing huge on that, because if you talk to anyone in Round Rock, Georgetown area, everyone's talking about that donut place. So I think there's a plateau that businesses have where they become almost a local celebrity type business. And if you don't capitalize on that next income stream, you're silly. So yeah, the wash that I worked for most of my career, a bunch of us that worked there begged to have some sort of outside of the job merch that we wanted to wear because we were so proud of working there. We wanted the extra shirt to wear outside of work. It doesn't matter if we were with our friends, if we were at a sporting event, like we just wanted the extra stuff because we were proud of that logo. And yet it was like frowned upon if we did. Man, we all do this. We all go buy brands just because it says Nike on the shirt. We're paying Nike to advertise for them. What in the world are we all doing with our lives? I just put on last night I was cold and I put on my Columbia hoodie. The whole front of it is a one huge big Columbia logo. Why am I not wearing a huge Peak Shine logo on my hoodie? And it's so very silly. And so, yes, I personally, I don't think my branding yet is to that point where a business like mine would go out and spend a bunch of money on shirts and hoodies and hats. And, in my business, we're not dealing with tax because we're a service-based industry. And so for us, moving into selling products adds a layer of complication for us, but I do agree with it. I do think businesses are not capitalizing on it as much as they could. And you will see me creating merch that my employees can buy, their parents and grandparents can buy, and then it will spiral to, we've got members that have been members with us for 4+ years.
Yeah.
You don't think that they would wear a shirt, and you can start that for us, we can start down that path. It's like, oh, hey, you've been with us one more year. Here's a free t-shirt. So not only are you using retention on that, but now they're advertising for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's silly if people don't go down that path.
Yeah, definitely. You said something powerful when we met previously. There's something always to do. How has entrepreneurship changed your day-to-day life, even emotionally and from the perspective of always having something to do?
It doesn't quit. Honestly, I was lucky enough to be around the CEO and the director of operations of some of my previous companies. And I watched them, from the side as we were out in an event, work event, whatever, what have you. I heard them answering personal calls throughout the day. I heard them putting personal items on their calendar right in between two work, calendar calls, right? He had something to do at 10 that was full on work, big, important meeting. And then the next thing you know, he's taking his dog to the vet. And he integrated his life. And I was able to see that and watch my boss golf at 2 o'clock, on a Tuesday, and where most people would be still working. And I watched him still answer the phone now if a work call came in, right? It is what it is,
Yeah.
you know? So I did have some good examples of learning how to put it in between everything. I was also lucky enough before I became an entrepreneur to have the ability in the job that I had to have that free reign where they allowed us to learn that. Now, entrepreneurship takes the next level of that because you're having to, right now, I'm bookkeeping, I'm marketing, I'm selling memberships myself, I'm going to networking events, I'm hanging out with you, I get phone calls, right? As you probably do, being in the industry's long time, you've been marketing a long time, you probably get phone calls. They're just helping people. People just saw you and like just want to ask your advice. I still get that. So like you're pulled in so many different directions when you're an entrepreneur. The best thing that I can suggest is get to bed early, wake up early. I do a lot of work before anyone else wakes up. You know, I'm not a night person. You know, I get in bed by 9:30, but I'm also up by 5 or 5:30. And so grab the coffee and knock out things before my phone starts ringing.
Mhm.
You know, I still answer from all 3 sites, they all ring to my cell phone still. So
Yeah.
you can imagine how much my phone is going off. And so if an entrepreneur does not use before 8 AM wisely, you're kind of screwed if
Yeah.
you're kind of going this as a small business owner.
Yeah, and you don't really have much of a life at that point. You know, it's something I learned. So easy just to all of a sudden just put yourself into a grind without, some of those things that you said and schedule, that schedule life
That's right. That's right.
because you're right. You are always working. It
Yeah,
doesn't
so and that's the point. You have to be intentional with the life part too. That's what I learned, and again, I didn't learn that until way late in my career. I didn't do any of life. I just worked, worked, worked because I thought it was work first, play later. When you're an entrepreneur, honestly, you can't do the work first, play later because you'll just always work. There's no later for the play, and so you do have to learn when to turn it off. You know, when I'm with my daughter, yes, I'll answer the phone every once in a while, but there is intentional time that if I've been working for 48 hours straight, haven't really seen her, left before she got up, came home after she went to bed sort of thing, I schedule in to play on the trampoline with her, right? Put it on the calendar. Hey, and she's 5, so she'll hold me accountable. I'm like, hey, tomorrow night I'll play with you. When I get home tomorrow night, guess who's bugging me? And so she holds me accountable really well, as any 5 or 6 year old would. Hey, you said you'd play with me on the trampoline. So as an entrepreneur, you cannot do the work first, play later situation, is what I'm learning. And I was able to practice before I went full in owning my own business. And so I was lucky in that regards that I had good examples set up for that. And so now, the only advice I would say is put it on your calendar. There's nothing wrong with putting personal things on your calendar. You
Yeah.
want to date your wife, put it on your calendar. You want to have breakfast with your kids, put it on your calendar. You want to take them to school, even if it's every morning, put it as a reoccurring thing on the calendar. So it trains your brain to know that that is just as important as your next sales call.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And it's so hard to do, but that's some money advice right there. I love it.
Seen it work. And I've seen it work. It works for me. This morning, right? A roofer had to come look at the house, right? From all these storms. That's a personal, right? That's not work, but it is just as important, right? I can't have the roof leaking,
Yeah.
right? So like put it in the calendar. It's just
Yeah.
as important.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So have there been moments where you question whether you should keep going or not?
Daily. Yeah, daily.
Yeah, me too.
Daily. I joke all the time. You've probably seen this, right? Because your algorithm probably throws this to you too. There's not a funnier like meme that I see on Instagram than it says, as an entrepreneur, one day we're saying we're selling the truck, and then the very next day we saying we're expanding, hire a bunch of people.
So
It is absolutely the roller coaster, and then they have ones that are like that say your bank account, right? It's like Monday, $300, like Tuesday, $35,000, and then Wednesday, $1,000. It is, those are, comedy is best when it's the most true.
yeah.
The best comedy in the world is the most true. And I laugh and laugh when I see those memes because honestly, they're not exaggerated, Amy. They're not exaggerated at all.
They're not. It's a little bit like the stock market. Your bank account's
Yes.
like the stock market. One day it's
Yes.
like, "Woohoo, I'm rich," and then the next one is like, "Oh, no, I'm poor."
Yes. You get bad news on the same day that you just won big. So I can't lie. This is tough, right? We're scraping for payroll. right? Can't put that on a credit card, right? That got to come out the bank account. You got to pay cash to some people, right? That's not a credit card situation. You know, you can buy parts, you can pay for chemistry, you can even put utilities a lot of times on a credit card. You running out of money, but like we're scraping by some days, and you kind of go back and wish, like, man, I had a really good job offer before I acquired these first two sites. Like, I look at the wife and go, you know, you're driving a paid off 2015 160,000 mile car. It's a daily thing, Aimee. I'm going to be honest with you. It is daily. It is not for the weak. This is, you know, I'm stressed every day. And it eases up, right? You know that as an entrepreneur. It's some days are better than others. You get some wins and you can stair step, you know, you can compound those wins. You know, I think we had a fleet account re-sign up with us. It was there, we did a trial with a fleet, the local city police. We did a trial with them and they re-upped with us. Man, what a big win this week when I got that email that said, hey, we liked your services. We want to continue. Boom, huge win, right? But the very next day, you could have something that's like, hey, you know, we just had three people quit all in the same day. Like, well, crap. Like, and so it does this, but the reality is it does take a special person. This is not for everybody.
Yeah.
Even people who think it's for them need to just be self-aware that this there's no shame in not being an entrepreneur, right? If you're a 9 to 5 worker and you're damn good at it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I've got some best friends that have moved up in the car wash industry ladder and he crushes it.
Yeah.
He never wants to be an entrepreneur. He never wants to own his own business. Making great money, has great work-life balance. Like, keep doing that, man. And I look at him and I'm envious some days.
Yeah. Nice security there.
Yeah, like I am, and that's okay because I think as an entrepreneur, it forces me to go, how do I create that for myself and others?
Yeah.
You know, how can I get that stability? And it's the love of the build, right? And so every single time it's low, it's man, if I get through this, man, the book is going to be awesome if I get through this. If I figure this out, the book is going to be awesome. The story is going to be awesome. When you sit back and I'm trying to tell my daughter how we built this, how I was able to give it to her, man, that story is going to be incredible if I do figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, Aimee, honestly, on the flip side, man, if this fails, if I suck at being an entrepreneur, I mean, I hate to say it this way because it kind of sounds negative, but like, I'll just go back and be a normal person. Like, my worst case scenario is what everyone else is doing today. I'll just go get a job.
Yeah.
Like, that's worst case. My worst case scenario is everybody's daily life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work my hardest at this. And if I fail, then I'll just go get a job. Like, okay, no worries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. When I first started, I used to call it the 5 years suck. Now I'm farther along than that. I realize it's not just 5 years. And but I remember when there were times when I first started out where like, someone didn't pay me and I'd end up at the food bank. How am I going to pay rent? Or, somebody last second, I needed $2,000. That's my rent payment. They're like, we're closing our business, just
Right.
crazy things or fraud or whatever, all the stuff that happens. And I started, and I've had, the reason why I mention this is I've had entrepreneur friends reach out and like desperate. And I've never mentioned this on my podcast, but I kind of found ways to survive through these different cash apps. And also there's a company called Giggle Finance that gives you loans off of your EIN. So it doesn't use your social security number. It's just EIN. They're brutal when it comes to, paying them back. They don't give you any leeway, but it's better than like some huge horrendous payday loan or something. And then there's these cash apps. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it's Money Lion, Dave, Clio, and there's a whole bunch of them. I have them all. I have all I have all the ones that don't require you to have an actual paycheck from an employer because,
Nice.
I'm not set up that way. And so I get thousands of extra dollars into my bank account, 3 to 4 thousand extra dollars every single month for capital, just using those apps. And what's amazing is, and they're not high fees. It's like $5 or whatever. And so what happens is at a certain date during the month, they pay back the app and then immediately you get to take the money out again.
Interesting.
Yeah. So those have saved my behind when I've been in an emergency, like, need food, need to pay my
Right.
electric bill, need to pay rent or something like that. But I thought I'd mention that because if there's someone that's listening that's in a stressful moment, Giggle Finance and all of the cash apps.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I haven't used any of those. We have leveraged zero interest credit cards quite a bit.
Yeah,
I've kind of been doing that since I was 18. Once I realized that you could do a balance transfer, not to just more debt, you could actually do a balance transfer straight to your checking account.
yeah.
Once I learned that, man, it was over. I did not pay interest on any credit cards since I was 18. Here
Yeah,
until recently. So I'm gonna be honest, right? Like, when business is struggling, you get past that zero interest period, you better get your stuff together because they will hit you over the head, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so that's mostly what we leverage, and some small we've gotten a couple family loans that we were able to get at a reasonable price, and able to help out family and pay them and make them a little bit of money at the same time.
So I have a couple more questions for you. Why do you think most entrepreneurs delay branding and marketing until it's almost too late?
I don't know why other entrepreneurs do it. We did it because I was under the impression I could do all this myself. And so as an entrepreneur, you have to be wildly optimistic and almost to the point of cocky. And so, hard worker, I can do all this myself. So we were trying to nickel and dime this. I was trying to pay for things on my own. And so for us, we did not use outside help or outside financing. And so some of that was me nickel and diming it. So that's on me. So, I think trying to find funding for things, I think it would be better. And so the mistake I made, and so this goes to your question, we should have taken a lump sum of funding, right? And taken a big loan when we acquired our first two sites and then just planned better,
Yeah.
right? Held some back for reserves for losses and actually planned out our capex, planned out rebranding, and had a better plan on that stuff. Instead, we were kind of just doing it as it came, and then I was trying to find some money for it, right? And so I think in a small business world, we're not ready, kind of like what we talked about earlier, right? I'm wearing a lot of the hats. So a lot of us don't have the capacity to plan 6 months ahead. What we're doing is we're trying to. Don't get me wrong. We have ambitions for 6 months ahead, but we're not planning out a realistic cash flow. What is this special going to be? What is the marketing going to be? We are just now 18 months in getting caught up to a marketing standpoint where we know what special is going to be in the next quarter,
Yeah.
right? What membership special are we releasing, you know, in quarter three? We finally, 18 months in, have made the mistake to get the printers to print out signage last minute because hey, we're starting a special in 2 weeks. We're like, crap. So I think entrepreneurs need to sit down more. I think we need to prioritize. I know we're putting out fires. Go have a breakfast with your business partner. Go have breakfast with your wife, with another entrepreneur, just a friend that you can bounce ideas off of, and spend that time intentionally eating a good breakfast and writing down, month, 3 months, 6 month, 1 year, expenses. Maybe not the dollar amount, but just in general things that are going to come up. And then, right, kind of do that regularly. And then you can finally put dollar figures into those and so forth. Because that is, in fact, where we made the mistake is we weren't ready. The third site was kind of a last minute acquisition. And so we didn't know we were going to acquire a third site 4 months into starting this journey. It was a good deal. We jumped on it, right? And so we weren't prepared. And I think a lot of other small business owners are trying to do it themselves,
Yeah.
and they're not thinking 6 months out on expenses. I
Yeah.
don't think they're doing that enough. They're not forecasting enough. Nor am I. I'm not pointing the finger. Nor am I.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, even I think back when I first started my marketing agency, I wish I would have paid somebody that had already gone, walked the distance, did the thing that could have handed me what they could have had and quite literally handed me a lot of what I know now. And I had the funds to do that. I just didn't. I just thought it's the same. I thought, you know what? You think in your head, it's just working hard, but it's not just working hard. There's so much more that goes, the layers. There's the layers. Like, even in the marketing space, we've been talking about this, there's layers. There's like, you've got the ads over here, and then you've got the social media over here, and then you've got your brand, and you've got all of this stuff. And if one little thing is off, you've got people answering calls. You know, like there's so many ways that you could be leaking revenue, and so many things that get dropped that it's near impossible for you to just work hard,
That's right.
you know, without really being in some scary situations. So I absolutely agree. I wish that I there was one guy that I learned from initially, but I only like I listened to this much where he said contact 2,000 people a month and you'll get 15 people out of there that might buy from you. And so that's what I did. I reached 6,000 people because I just work hard, right? And did I succeed? Yes, but there was so much I didn't know.
Hmm.
Uh, so looking back, I wish a lot of things. But you know, if there's people that are listening, there are still newer. Pay the people, put the money
Yes.
aside. You know, don't just think that it's just working hard. And but to this side of things too, I would say this: there's a lot of really bad marketing agencies out there that don't know what they're doing, and they're, you know, and some of them are scammers. I have run into a lot of them, and I would say that always ask for your numbers. If you don't understand, like let's say you're doing Google ads, for example, take the reports, take all the data, ask for all, put it up in Chat GPT and ask it to give it to you in normal language what's going on. Because a lot of these agencies will, you know, say they're running ads, but they're not running ads. They're really just doing running their own ads and divvying up leads, or they're not optimizing things. You know, there's just a lot of loopholes. So I feel like that's a truth serum, but that's my little rant.
Well, but I want to go back to something that you said that I think needs to be emphasized is when you're an entrepreneur, you can't get out of this by just working hard. There's so much when you're an entrepreneur that's more mental than just the time and you doing the thing, right? Your 6,000 calls. When you're an entrepreneur, there's more to it than that. Yes, you can do the 6,000 calls. I can go sell memberships right now, but in the back of my head, I'm actually not going to be as good at it as I used to be because I'm thinking about how to pay payroll on Monday. I'm thinking about my lead source. I'm working on an AI prospecting tool so we can sell fleet plans. And so right now I'm trying to build how do I get fleet leads in the back of my head. And so I won't give the attention needed. Right. And so what you said was so powerful because that is resonating with me more over the last 6 months than it ever has my entire life. Most of my life, I've been successful just because I worked hard. I was there before everyone else. I was there later than everyone else, no matter what job, what we were up to, right? I just outworked people. I was never smarter than everyone in the room, but man, did I outwork everyone in the room. And people know me for that.
Yeah.
What I'm learning is that's not actually helping me right now. It's not. Maybe being an early bird where I can get a few things done is a little bit, but outworking people is actually not driving the entrepreneurship. I have to just use my time wisely and ensure that I'm chasing the right thing as opposed to just putting out fires that actually don't move the business forward. So, entrepreneurship game is not the hard work game. It's deciding, does this move the business 1% forward today? If it does, let's concentrate on that. If it doesn't, let's put that off
Yeah.
and let's do that another day. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's super powerful and it needs to get said more and more. You can't work your way out of this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, and I met with a business owner the other day, and she's like, "There's got to be an easier way to this," and I'm like, "Well, in a sense, there is if you have a really strong brand, right? If you have a really strong brand, you spend less of your time convincing people and more of your time just working with people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, you know, if you have to go out there and because your website sucks or your whatever, and people have to figure things out and figure you out and it's work for them, then you're always going to be dealing with, you know, just working too hard. I mean,
That's right.
there are things that that a lot of people are doing. They think, "Oh, I just post more. I'm just going to post more on social media." And then, you know, it's not working. And whenever someone says that it's not working, that's what it, you know, it's surely some easy buttons like that you can do to work smarter. But, again, like, you don't learn that by working really, really hard unless and I feel like it's that entrepreneur thing in us that, because I went through this whole the same thing, is being strong enough and more bulldog type focus where I'm gonna succeed. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do anything. If it's just work hard, I work hard. There's no biggie there. I've never been afraid of work. That was always my thought. But then on the other side of it, you have to be quick to let go because, if you're at something, and it's not moving the business, keep going at the same thing.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
it's not gonna move the business, and there's a reason why. And a lot of
Exactly.
people will step back and go, "Oh, marketing doesn't work." No, it works. It's your brand. Like you're driving people to your website, you're driving people to your business. If it's not working, it's the message you're sending out to the world. But I feel like I even did the same thing. Well, I'm just, we just go harder, and it doesn't work that way. So, but it takes learning from other people and fast tracking some things, I think, paying some people just do it, versus having to, learn all this stuff. I mean, all the marketing stuff is psychology. So you could be a psychologist. I spent most of my years, just a side note, I thought I was going to figure out marketing, spent 4 years learning from all the top marketers, all of the stuff, being a CMO, doing marketing for 3 different brands, celebrity brands, running their e-commerce stores. That was my whole intro. That was after I did Fortune 50 and, marketing to Fortune 50, which is very different. But the B2C stuff was all of that. And let me tell you, is that after the 4 years and after being in the grind and doing all that stuff, I still didn't know everything.
That's right.
And it wasn't until I switched from learning marketing and started to dive deeper into psychology and all the areas of psychology that I finally started to realize how things could be easier. But you could go out there and become a psychologist if you want, or you could pay somebody.
I think some of the stuff that you said, so right, going back to again, you're laying down some powerful stuff. I think talking about marketing and working hard, right? You said a lot of people just and right, we get this from these gurus on Instagram, right? Or whatever, just post more. Like how many times do you post in a week? Twice? Well, if you want more leads, just post 10 times a week then, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it does and it doesn't, right? Going back to me and you talking about hard work. If you as an entrepreneur, I'm still learning marketing. Again, I'm a car wash guy. I'm not a marketer. I'm not like I don't know how to do Facebook ads, but instead of just working hard, which would be in this scenario, just posting more, let's post more. Why don't I take a step back and actually like study, right? It's not maybe more harder work. It's like, let's educate myself a little bit, right? Let's network with the right people, talk to people like you, get your opinion, read some books, right? Listen to some experts on the psychology of it. So it's not necessarily it's work, work, work. It's as an entrepreneur, it's self-reflect on what you do good and what you don't, and then
Mhm.
improve. Or and I like this what you just said because I'm learning this too. Just pay someone. Like you don't have time to learn it. That could I don't have time to learn it.
Yeah.
I don't have time to shoot content, nor do I want to. So I don't have time to learn. I don't have time to get a good camera, research a good camera, get one, learn how to do angles, learn how to use the camera properly, and then think of ideas on how to do it. I don't want to, nor should I be spending time doing it. And so I just pay someone to take content for me.
Yeah.
Right. So you have as an entrepreneur, you have a few different paths to go. And I think working hard is not just post, 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 post. It's learn why, learn the right thumbnails, the right time of day, all the things, and take time to learn. Or, like you said, just farm it out is another path,
Yeah.
right? Go pay someone. Like I know it costs a lot. I know you don't want to spend it. But again, if you use your time wisely and you push that to somebody else, what can you be doing to drive revenue in that amount of time that you were going to spend learning something and still not being very good at it because you're new,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You can go to college, right? How many people, right, go to college, they get out with these awesome business degrees and they don't know anything about business. They don't know one thing about business. They've never
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
They learned it, right? They spent all these years learning it. So it would be similar. Just let the experts do it. The other thing that you said was very interesting is there's a lot of marketing agencies out there that are kind of scams. They don't really know what they're doing,
Mm.
right? They're popping up everywhere. I agree with you. it's super, super tough to find a person that's real, that understands what you're trying to accomplish. They can verbalize what they're going to do to help. They know how to track what they're doing. I also want to bring up the fact that, especially because I've been diving in again to some prospecting and using AI a ton more, there's a bunch of slop out there in AI too. Everybody and their uncle thinks that they're building some awesome new AI agent for you. And so weeding through all of the different new AI agents out there is tough when you're trying to find, when you know the capabilities out there in that technology, the capabilities out there for certain things, but weeding through all the junk. You know how many ads of random AI agents I'm getting on my Instagram right now? It's just insane. And so it's to your point, there's marketing scams out there that people that I think they're good, they don't know what they're doing. There's so many new AI companies that are out there, they don't know what they're doing. All there's just a bunch of slop. And so we, as an entrepreneur, weeding through that too to find the right people, the right teams, the right new companies that can help us. That's another, right? That's another headache in itself for sure.
Yeah, doing your homework and figuring that out. So, what is your truth that has gotten you this far in your journey?
What is my truth?
Yeah.
The truth is that I'll never quit. The truth is that, you know, the moment I started kind of getting into my 30s, I started being self-reflective. And so I believe that if I can continuously get 1% better, I'll figure it out. The truth is that I'm now that I'm so self-reflective, I know that the harder it gets, the more I'm going to push forward and actually win. Right? If I'm backed into a corner, I'm actually better. I'm better in a emergency situation. I should have been a firefighter because my brain works better when there's stress on it. You know, not that self-motivated. If there's nothing to do, I can find something to do, right? But if I'm backed into a corner, my to-do list is 3 pages long. I've got phone calls and, you know, the bank is telling me they can't give me more money. I actually work way better. I'm not necessarily a nicer person during those times, but I do perform better and thrive off that. So my one truth is like, again, if I fail, I'll just go back to being normal. I'll just go get a job and we're still good. Two, I know the harder I push myself and the more I back myself into a corner and put myself into hard spots, I actually thrive in those hard spots. I subconsciously put myself in stressful situations. And it's I'm dead serious. I don't know that I'm doing it sometimes. No, like I said, we acquired our third site only we started looking at it, negotiating 2 months into by already acquiring 2 sites, you know, and so we didn't have to do that. We probably shouldn't have, if we're looking back on it for the cash flow and money wise and everything else, and time and energy, we probably shouldn't have. But I thrive better under that. And so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I got
Yeah. Okay. Well, last question. If you were able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out, what would it be?
on this specific journey.
Hmm.
This specific journey, I would have used my network and planned a little bit better. Like I said, we use your network, get funding early. You can't do this by yourself. That's what I would have given myself advice 18 months ago. Well, would have been 2 years ago, so we could have planned better and done this. So, use your network, get funding early, not later. Right? You need funding before the problem, not after the problem, right? Other than that, you know, I think we're still on a good path.
That I want to mention your website, thepeakshine.com, and that you also, your handles on Instagram and Facebook are the same. Do you want to uh, give a little shout out of where people can find your car washes?
Yeah, you guys can find us. We're building a brand out in the North Austin, Texas area, Round Rock and Georgetown area. We have 3 sites. As we've been talking a lot about marketing today, please go look at our Instagram. We're going full in on the attention grabbing videos as a lot of businesses are, and then you know our kind of thing is to grab your attention with some fun videos that show kind of who we are as people and the fun side, and then throw some education in there. We've debunked a few myths about car washing today. And I think our social media is also going to bring value to that and kind of debunk some myths about your car washing. But what we learned in Texas here, Texas has water is precious here, and not enough car washes are doing what they can to preserve their water resources. And so we'd like to not only do our part and save the fresh water and reduce our freshwater usage, but we want to tell other people that and debunk the myth that driveway car washing and using the water hose or the pressure washer actually uses more fresh water than what we do. In fact, a lot of full service restaurants use more fresh water in a day than we do. And so let's debunk the fact that car washes are a freshwater suck if done correctly. We just want to be known for being the local guy. Come by and see us. We have the best value in Central Texas. We're the only business, only car wash in a 300-mile radius that's Better Business Bureau accredited. We have well into the close to the 2,000 5-star reviews. So there's a reason for that.
Love that. And if you're listening, you want more information about this podcast or upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Aimee.